Are you ready to be truly frightened? We're about to dive into the dark side of reality, a place where shadows whisper and fear takes hold. Tonight we explore two terrifying tales ripped from the headlines, stories that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. These aren't just stories, they're warnings. Imagine, if you will, a place where hope went to die. A desolate shell of forgotten dreams, its chipped paint and silent hallways echoing with the ghosts of patience past. This, my friends, is where our first story leads us. The air hangs heavy, thick with the metallic scent of old blood and disinfectant. Moonlight spills through shattered windows, casting long skeletal shadows across the dusty floor. It's the kind of place that sends shivers crawling down your spine, the kind of place that makes you question if you're truly alone. Our story centers around a group of adventurous teenagers drawn to the abandoned hospital like moths to a flickering flame. They'd heard the whispers, the local legends of restless spirits and unexplained occurrences. Of course, they dismissed them as mere folklore, the ramblings of a town steeped in superstition, but tonight they were about to learn a chilling truth. Some legends are rooted in reality. The ringleader, a cocky young man named Jake, kicked open the rusted front door, its hinges groaning in protest. His flashlight danced across the dilapidated waiting area, illuminating dust-covered chairs and a toppled-over reception desk. His friends, a mix of nervous laughter and excited chatter, followed close behind. They explored the derelict hospital, their voices echoing through the eerie silence. They peered into empty rooms, each one a snapshot of forgotten suffering. A gurney lay abandoned in the middle of a surgical theatre, its leather straps cracked and worn. A tray of rusted surgical instruments lay scattered on a nearby table, a silent testament to the hospital's grim past. As they ventured deeper into the bowels of the building, the atmosphere grew noticeably colder. The air seemed to crackle with an unseen energy, sending goosebumps erupting across their skin. They reached the pediatric ward, its walls adorned with faded cartoon murals that did little to mask the palpable sense of dread. It was there, amidst the discarded toys and tiny dust-covered cribs, that they felt a presence, cold and unseen, watching their every move. The laughter died in their throats, replaced by a suffocating silence. They could hear their own heartbeats pounding in their ears, each thump a frantic drumbeat against the oppressive silence. Suddenly a blood-curdling scream pierced the darkness. The group spun around, their flashlights frantically searching for the source. They found Emily, her face contorted in terror, pointing a trembling finger towards the end of the hallway. "I saw something," she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. "Something dark." Jake, trying to mask his own growing fear, dismissed her claim. "It was probably just a rat," he said, his voice lacking its usual bravado, but even he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. They decided to leave, their previous excitement replaced by a chilling unease. As they made their way back through the labyrinthine corridors, they began to hear an eerie, humming sound. It seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, a low, mournful drone that sent shivers down their spines. The humming grew louder as they approached the main entrance, culminating in a deafening crescendo that seemed to shake the very foundation of the building. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. They burst out of the hospital, gasping for breath, their eyes wide with terror. They didn't speak as they ran, their footsteps pounding against the pavement. They didn't stop running until they reached the safety of their cars, the distant silhouette of the abandoned hospital looming behind them like a spectre. They never returned to the hospital, forever haunted by the chilling events of that night. The memory of the cold, unseen presence, the blood-curdling scream, and the haunting hum stayed with them, a constant reminder that some places are best left undisturbed. Our next tale takes us deep into the heart of Appalachia, where ancient forests hold secrets as old as time itself. The locals call it Whispering Pines, a place where the trees seem to whisper to one another, their branches intertwined in a perpetual embrace. But beneath the serene beauty lies a darkness, a malevolence that has haunted the woods for generations. Our story begins with two young lovers, lost and alone in the heart of the forest. They had wandered off the beaten path, their laughter echoing through the trees, oblivious to the danger lurking just beyond their sight. The sun began its descent, casting long, ominous shadows across the forest floor. The air grew colder, the playful whispers of the wind replaced by an unnatural silence. They stumbled upon an old, overgrown trail, its entrance marked by a weathered sign that read, simply, "No trespassing." A shiver ran down their spines, but they pressed on, their curiosity outweighing their better judgment. As darkness enveloped the forest, the temperature plummeted. The once familiar woods transformed into a menacing labyrinth, the trees twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. They could hear the sound of their own heartbeats in their ears, each thump a frantic reminder of their isolation. They stumbled through the undergrowth, their clothes snagged on thorns, their breath forming clouds in the frigid air. The path, if it could even be called that, seemed to twist and turn back on itself, leading them further and further astray. They called out for help, their voices swallowed by the dense foliage. The only response was the rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl, its mournful cry echoing through the trees like a harbinger of doom. They were hopelessly lost, their initial fear giving way to a creeping sense of dread. They had heard the stories, whispered around campfires and passed down through generations, of a malevolent entity that haunted the woods, preying on those foolish enough to venture off the beaten path. As the night wore on, they began to hear strange noises, rustling in the undergrowth, branches snapping, disembodied whispers carried on the wind. They quickened their pace, their eyes darting nervously from side to side, their hands clasped tightly together. They stumbled upon a clearing, bathed in the pale light of the moon. In the center stood an ancient oak tree, its gnarled branches reaching towards the sky like skeletal fingers. And there, at the base of the tree, they saw it. A figure shrouded in shadow, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. It stood motionless, its gaze fixed upon them, its very presence radiating an aura of pure evil. They froze, their blood turning to ice in their veins, their minds struggling to comprehend what their eyes were seeing. The figure took a step towards them, its movements fluid and unnatural. They could hear the sound of their own ragged breaths, the only sound in the otherwise silent forest. They knew with a terrifying certainty that they were in the presence of something ancient and evil. They turned and ran, their legs pumping furiously, their lungs burning with exertion. They didn't dare look back, but they could feel the entity's presence behind them, its cold, malevolent gaze boring into their backs. They ran until they could run no more, collapsing on the forest floor, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and terror. They lay there for what seemed like an eternity, listening intently for any sign of pursuit. But the forest had fallen silent once more, the only sound the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. They slowly got to their feet, their legs shaky, their bodies battered and bruised. They had escaped, but they knew deep down that they would never forget the horrors they had witnessed in the forest of the Forsaken. They emerged from the woods at dawn, their clothes torn, their faces pale and drawn. They never spoke of their ordeal, but the memory of that night, of the entity beneath the ancient oak tree, would haunt them for the rest of their days. The forest of the Forsaken had claimed their innocence, leaving them forever changed by their encounter with the darkness that lurked within its depths. So, there you have it. Two terrifying tales from the darkest corners of our world. Remember these stories as you close your eyes tonight. Remember that the line between reality and nightmare is thinner than you think. Sleep tight. Don't let the bedbugs bite.